Welcome to today's program titled Strategic Hiring in Hong Kong, Practical Legal Insights for Employers on Talent Schemes. All participants are in listen-only mode. However, you are encouraged to submit questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. Copies of the program's recording and materials will be distributed to all attendees in the days ahead. At this time, I would like to turn it over to our speaker. Leon, you may begin.
Thank you, Joanna. And thanks for coming to today's session. We are going to, discuss some, talent schemes as well as some visa entry permits programs in Hong Kong, which is very important when we hire, non-local, employees in Hong Kong. So, in general, a person requires a visa or entry permit to work, study, and take up residence or stay in Hong Kong if he or she wants to stay more than the allowed, visa-free period. So we'll go through this kind of, visa entry permit programs, and we'll emphasize on certain, talent schemes, which allows a more flexible, visa program. And I'm Liam. I'm from, Cypher Shore, and we normally handle, labor employment, issues. We provide this, legal services regarding labor employment, across the, and APEC jurisdictions. And now, in the first session, we'll kind of go through an overview of the visa permits as well as some, talent schemes in Hong Kong. So we will have, a general introduction for the visa permits, and we'll also, cover recent, updates and changes to such, visa programs or talent schemes programs. And in the second, part, we will cover the considerations for these, visa or entry schemes, and we'll also compare the different, visa programs and with talent schemes in Hong Kong. Then we will know, we will kind of take a deeper dive into the differences between among those, different schemes, and we will also, touch the topic that how, as an employer in Hong Kong, how we can, implement, different schemes, based on the different conditions and qualifications, and as well as other, elements of, different employees, different, candidates in Hong Kong. And the last session will be a Q&A session, but feel free to ask any questions during the whole session. So at first we will go through some, visa programs in Hong Kong, and the first session, the first program we want to introduce is the General Employment Policy and or admission scheme for mainland talents and professionals, and GEP and ASMTP. So these are, these visa programs apply to the professionals with special skills, knowledge, or experience of value not readily available in Hong Kong, and it's quota-free and no sector specific. And in order to be eligible to this, working visa, the applicant should first no crime record and should have good education background, and normally, should have a first, degree in relevant, field, and also there should be a genuine job vacancy in Hong Kong, and in during the application, the applicant should, have a confirmed offer of employment, and to ensure the Hong Kong authority that, well, this is a genuine need for this specific, professional vacancy in Hong Kong. Of course, and the applicants also need to, prove he or she, has, secured a package at a market level. So um, there are two different, schemes, GEP and ASMPP. And actually, the two schemes are almost the same, only one difference, which is the GEP excludes mainland Chinese. But, the ASMTP is only for mainland Chinese. So, but in general, ASMTP applications are more difficult to be approved. So for ASMTP, it takes longer than GEP. Maybe it will be 2 or 4 weeks longer for the application process. So we mentioned the applicant should have a package at a market level. What if his or her salary is too low? So if the salary is too low, the applicant may need to explain the overall compensation and package, and to the immigration authority in Hong Kong. For example, if he or she has some commission-based package or a bonus, or even stock options, and he should he or she should present these programs and to the immigration authority during the application. So you mentioned we touched the application now. The supporting documents include the proof of academic qualifications and work experience. And for new application, and it requires the proof of financial standing and details of the company background and the business plan. So to ensure that this is not a fake needs, right? For mainland, residents, there's an additional requirement, a letter of consent from the applicant's present work unit or relevant mainland authorities. And the processing time for GEP, it might take 4 to 8 weeks, but for ASMTP, 2 additional weeks might need might require it. So as we have mentioned, ASMTP is more difficult to be approved compared with GEP program. So we would like to introduce a recent change, a very recent change to GEP and ASMTP, and which took effect from June 30th of this year, last month. And a new channel under GEP and the ASMTP took effect from that date, and which is the new channel. Generally, it targets mid-level qualified and experienced non-degree technical professionals in specified trades, and with a goal to attract them to settle in Hong Kong in the long run. Those specific and skilled trades include they include those are new industrialization technicians, nurses, aircraft maintenance technicians, marine services technicians, and IT technicians, lift technicians, building information modeling coordinators, and electrical technicians. So this is a 3-year pilot, arrangement took effect from last month, and the numbers will be kept at 10,000 in total, but including 3,000 for each skilled trade. So it means that if the applicant is one of those technicians mentioned here, and it will be more easier for him for her to get the approval from the immigration department of Hong Kong government. And of course, there's an age, requirement, which and the applicant should, the age should between, 18 and 40. The second, category of the visa schemes we want to, introduce is we call TECTAS, Technology Talent and Mission Scheme. This scheme, this is an arrangement, for eligible companies to admit non-local technology talent, to undertake R&D work in Hong Kong. But under this scheme, company need to apply for a quota. And in order to be eligible, the applicant should have no, crime record, and the quota we have already mentioned, right? And the applicant should be, employed as a full-time employee. So part-time is, not eligible. And we mentioned about R&D. So the R&D should be in areas of advanced, communication tech, AI, biotech, cybersecurity, data analytics, digital entertainment, fintech, green tech, and etc. So this is all very, advanced, technology. And the applicant should also be a degree holder in STEM from top universities. And similar to the, GEP, and remuneration should be no lower than, the market level in Hong Kong. So in order to, apply for this, visa, the submission should be online, and the company will receive a link by email after the individual applicant's submission. And supporting documents are quite similar to the program under GEP or ASMDB. And the processing time will be, shorter. And it took only 2 weeks upon receipt of all those, requirement documents. But we would like to remind that, and the application for the quota may take, weeks. So in total, it's around, similar. Just the, factors. Then we'll introduce a new, scheme for the, visa, which we call it as immigration arrangements for non-local graduates, or IANG. This is a program, for non-local students, which means the students came into Hong Kong with students visas. They are not, Hong Kong citizens, and that has, obtained, undergraduate or higher qualification in full-time locally accredited, program in Hong Kong. One reminder that for those, undergraduate or higher qualification in full-time program offered by institutions in Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Great Bay Area, jointly established universities, of mainland and Hong Kong, can also apply, this visa program. And the above, this program also applies to those Great Bay Area campaigns students. So not only Hong Kong, campers. And this is a quota-free, program, and there's no, sector specific. And in order to be eligible to this, visa program, applications, submitted within 6 months after date of graduation, they are referred to as a non-local recent graduates. For this category, there's no need to have secured offer of employment upon application, right? And there will be 24 months stay on time limitation, you know, only without other conditions of stay. But for those, submitted after 6 months of date of graduation, they are referred to as non-local, non-recent graduates. For this category of graduates, they need to secure an offer of employment in Hong Kong, and with with a job at a level commonly taken up by degree holders, and the package is at a market level. And similarly, they also has a 24 months stay on time limitation, only without other conditions of stay. And for the application, the submission also will be made online, and the employing company will use temporary application reference and applicant date of birth to retrieve application online and continue to fill out forms. And supporting documents are also very similar to the GEP and ASMTP program. The processing time will be shorter as well. And for recent graduates, it took only 2 weeks. And for non-recent graduates, it took around 4 weeks upon receipt of all required documents. Now we will go to a very hot visa program. Also, it's a talent scheme. We call it as a top talent pass scheme. This top talent pass scheme they applies to top talents with rich work experience and good academic qualifications and high income. And under this talent scheme, it allows multiple entries and with a very short, processing time, and the visa holders can bring spouse and children to Hong Kong. And it contains 3 categories. Categories A, under categories A, and individuals with an annual salary income of above Hong Kong dollar 2.5 million, and on a year basis, well, can apply. Under category B, the individuals which bachelor degree and from one of the world's top universities. There is a list for the top universities announced by the Hong Kong government, and it will be updated from time to time. And in addition to the degree from top universities, the category B applicant should also has at least a 3-year work experience worldwide. And under category C, and applicants should be recent graduates from top universities, but can be with less than 3 years of work experience. So as I've mentioned, the top universities list can be updated from time to time, and actually Hong Kong authority has already expanded the list of the top universities under this talent scheme we call the TTPS, to further broaden the network for attracting top talents worldwide. And on the very recent update, 13 top mainland China and overseas universities and institutions have been added to the list. So in total, the top university list contains around 200 eligible schools. And then we go to another, talent scheme kind of similar to TTPS. It's called a Quality Migrant Admission Scheme, QMAS. And QMAS is a little bit, complicated because there's a significant change of the, you know, standards to apply for this talent scheme. But we will go through this change, and it reflects the Hong Kong government's, in intention and to simplify the application for QMAS. So in general, this scheme intends to attract a highly skilled or talented persons to settle in Hong Kong to enhance Hong Kong's economic, competitiveness. And similarly as, TDPS, it also allows multiple, entries. The processing time, but the processing time is much longer than TDPS. It will take at least 2 months, but in practice, it may be much longer than 2 months, and it could be 3-4 months, and it's really a very long time for the application for the processing. And similarly, with the TTPS, the visa, QMS visa holders can also bring their spouse and children to Hong Kong, and there's no requirement to have a secured offer of local employment in Hong Kong under QMAS and TTPS. But we would like to remind that this is the local offer free only applies to new application when the applicant want to renew their visa under these two programs. A local employment is required. So and there's no there will be a need to fulfill a set of prerequisites under the general points test or achievement based point test, and compete for quota allocation. And we would like to cover slightly on the prerequisites. First, the age will be 18 or above, right? And then there will be financial requirement, which means that the applicant should be capable of supporting himself or herself and the spouse or children in Hong Kong. Of course, there should be no criminal records, and there will be basic education qualifications. He or she should obtain a first degree from recognized university, or a good technical qualifications. He or she should have proven professional abilities or experience or achievements. And before the change to the QMAS, there's general point test, which means there will be a scoring system, and under this system, the applicant should obtain at least 80 points out of a maximum of 225. Under this, we refer to as a general points test. I will very briefly, go through these, categories for different, scoring, system. Factor one is age. It will be a maximum 30 points. And if your age is from 18 to 39, you will get 30 points. And if you are 51 or above, you get 0 points under this category. So then we go to factor two, and is the academic and the professional qualifications, with a maximum of 70 points. So this is with a very high points, right? If you got 2 master's degrees, or if you're a doctor, you'll get 40 points here. And if you only have one master degree, or have always 2 bachelor's degree, you get 20 points here. And for those bachelor degrees holder, you have 10 points here. But if there will be additional points here if the degree is awarded by a renowned institution, you will get 30 points additional. So in total, it could be 70 points, which is a very high point section. And fact 3 is work experience. Maximum will be 55 points. And so depending on the years of your work experience, and also there will be an additional section, which means if you have no less than 2 years of work experience with international exposure, you will be awarded with 15 additional points. But so maximum it will be 55 points. And factor 4 will be the talent list. So if the applicant has a qualification and work experience meets the specifications of a professional in a talent list published by the government, he will score 30 points. And factor 4 will be the language. So if you are frequent in Chinese and English, you get 20 points. If you at least one foreign language, and you can also speak Chinese or English, you get 15 points. Otherwise, you get 10 points. Factor 6 is a family background with maximum 20 points. So your family member also can get your score, and so if your family members have degree or have the Hong Kong PR, will have scores around 5 scores for each. And yeah, if you have more children, you also have additional scores under this factor. So in November 2024, Hong Kong government enhanced the general points test under the QMAS program by adopting a more objective and clear scoring criteria to streamline the application and the selection process. Why? Because before this change, before this reform, the processing time for QMAS is extremely long. It might took 9 months to 10 or 12 months, to process an application under the QMAS scheme. You cannot imagine that if a company wants to hire a candidate under this specific, scheme, and it took a year to apply for the visa, which enable her to work in Hong Kong. And from an employment perspective, from a hiring perspective, we cannot wait for a candidate for a year, right? And it also, and the Hong Kong government was also aware of that. So they, put place a reform for the scoring system under the QMAS scheme specifically from the end of 2024. And then there was an enhanced GPT, system to replace the original item by item scoring system with just a more simple, a more straightforward system, which is a assessment questionnaire system. So applicants are required to confirm if they meet 12 assessment criteria under the questionnaire, you know, under 6 major aspects, which includes age, economic qualifications, language, work experience, annual income, and business ownership. And they're supposed to submit supporting documents. The applicants can submit applications if they meet at least the 6, assessment criteria out of the 12, criteria in total. So, in short, previously, the applicant should, go through all those, factors we mentioned just now, and under each, fact, they have a score, right? And they should plus all those scores, and to see whether all they get a score over 80 or not. Then they can apply for this QMAS system scheme. But after this reform, there will only be yes or no assessment under these 12 criteria. As long as they say yes to at least the 6 of those criteria, they are entitled to apply for this program. It makes the application much easier and makes the standards more, objective, and it simplifies the government's, approval. They do not need to, and do the calculation of all those scores in order to approve or reject the applicant's, application. So, let's go through the new, program, the new category, the 12, criteria. And first is about the age, as we mentioned just now. The applicant should be under 50 years old. So you simply answer yes or no to this, criteria. If yes, you get 1 yes, right? The second category will be, education. So whether you hold a master's degree or a doctorate degree, with qualified university. And criteria 3 is whether your master or doctorate degree is awarded by an eligible university related to a STEM, which means science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. And the category 3 will be language skills, which means criteria 4 is whether you have a good written and spoken skills in 2 languages. And the criteria 5 is whether you have a good written or spoken skills in English. And category 4 will be work experiences. Means the criteria 6 is whether you have no less than 5 years work experience, equivalent to degree level or expert level, and under the category the criteria 7 is whether you have at least 3 years of work experience, equivalent to degree level as specialist level in a multinational company or well-known enterprise. For example, in a listed company or a Fortune Global, 2000 or Fortune Global 500, or Huron China 500 company. So if your employer, you have work experience in a well-known company, a well-known, brand, enterprise, you can say yes to criteria 7. And criteria 8 will be whether you possess no less than 3 years of work experience, in specific field industries, including, innovation and technology, finance, and international trade. including the cross-border shipping and the air, and the supply chain management. And if you have this, experience, you can take yes to, criteria 8. Then criteria 9 will be whether you possess no less than 2 years international work experience, or at degree or specialist, level. Then we go to the annual income category, which we can refer to as criteria 10. Whether your annual income for the year immediately preceding the application is Hong Kong dollars 1 million or above. And the category 11 will be whether you currently owns a business entity which in the year immediately preceding the application has made an annual profit of 5 million Hong Kong dollars or more, or whether you currently owns a listed company. So for those, normally the criteria 11 and 12 are very difficult to meet because this will be, normally the job applicants, in the job market cannot meet this, right? These two criteria. So we have introduced, all the 12 criteria after the reform of the QMAS application system. And so it will be yes or no. If you have at least 6 yes, you can apply for this QMAS scheme. And TDPS and QMAS are very hot talent schemes now in Hong Kong. We have, according to the immigration, department, there are tens of thousands TTPS and QMAS, passport holders currently now in Hong Kong, and there will be more and more. So why there will be more, TDPS and QMAS scheme, talent scheme holders in Hong Kong now? Because of these, advantages for these two, talent schemes, which includes there will be no prior job offer required under these two, schemes. The applicants do not need a job offer before applying, and which allows for a very, greater flexibility in planning their relocation. And approved candidates can live in Hong Kong, and they have multi-entries visa, and it provides under these two talent schemes, there's a pathway to PR, to permanent residence, as long as the passport holders, as long as these visa holders, after living in Hong Kong for 7 continuous years, the TTPS and the QMAS visa holders can apply for permanent, residence. And it also allows a family reunification in Hong Kong because they can bring their immediate family members, including their spouse and children, to Hong Kong, which allow for, family reunification. And it's important that the spouse, they can also work in Hong Kong under the TTPS and the QMAS, talent scheme. So this is very important, difference compared with the other visa schemes we introduced, previously. So we have introduced almost all the applicable visa schemes or talent schemes in Hong Kong. But we would like to, clarify that these visa schemes and, talent schemes are on an employment basis. And, the purpose is to employ, candidate visa holders. So which means excluding those, investment based, based visa programs in Hong Kong, because that's irrelevant for employers, in Hong Kong. And we would like to do a compare of all these, different visa schemes or entry schemes or talent schemes, right? We have, briefly introduced the GEP or ASMTP, also TECTUS, also IANG, TTPS, and QMAS, right? So we have list differences of the different, visa schemes. First is whether or not this visa scheme is subject to a quota. We can see from the, table here, only TECTUS is subject to a quota currently, Previously, prior to 2024, actually QMAS is also subject to a quota, but now it's canceled, so it's quota free now. And so currently only TECTUS. For TECTUS, application, we need to apply for a quota. And then the second, column, you can see must, whether or not there should be a Hong Kong offer when we apply for this visa. And for GEP and the ASMTP, yes, it is required. It's a must, right? For TECTUS, also yes, right? But for IANG, generally no. But if the applicant is a non-recent graduate, yes, he or she should obtain should secure a Hong Kong offer, when he or she applied for this, IANG visa. But for TTPS, for QMAS, when they apply for a new, visa, a new talent scheme, there's no need for them to secure a Hong Kong offer. But as I've mentioned before, when they want to renew the TTPS or QMAS talent scheme visa, they should, secure, Hong Kong employment relationship and during the application. They are supposed to submit, materials including labor contract, including the payroll, records, including MPF, contribution records, etc. to, prove they have already, obtained a local employment, contract in Hong Kong in order, to get their renewal under the TTPS and the QMAS talent scheme. And also, we would like to, compare another, element. Must the, applicant have a university degree under, these different, categories of visa schemes? For GEP or ASMTP, no, it's a non-degree based, visa program. But for other, categories of, visa schemes, the answer is yes. The applicant should have obtained a university degree. And specifically, for TECTUS, and this should be a STEM degree, right? And for TTPS, this should be a degree from the top universities, which is released by the Hong Kong government, which now includes around 200 universities or institutions across the world. And so we can do a very simple summary on the target of these different visa schemes and or talent schemes. For GEP or ASMTP, the targets, they are technical professionals, non-degree. It could be non-degree technical professional, right? But for the tactors, the target is R&D talents. And for IANG, the targets are graduates from Hong Kong universities or Great Bay Area specific, Hong Kong, related universities, campuses. For TTPS, the targets are experienced graduates from top universities. And for QMS, it's a more balanced, criteria. They want to attract the Hong Kong government want to attract high quality migrants under this, criteria under this, category. So this is a rough, compare of different visa scheme, different talent scheme, which is available for employers in Hong Kong to, choose. So we want to, touch the following topic is how do we, choose as an employer in Hong Kong? How do we choose a type of visa, a type of scheme, including talent schemes, and when we want to hire a candidate in Hong Kong, and why? Right? We have introduced, we have gone through all these different, schemes, visa schemes, the different talent schemes. We have compared, the differences. We have compared their differences, right? In the table, in the previous, slides. And now we would like to, touch the topic is that how do we choose? How can we choose the visa? Because sometimes an applicant is eligible for multiple visas under these, different, visa schemes. And as an employer, how can we recommend? How can we assist them to apply for the visas, depending on the different, conditions, scenarios we may face when, we want to hire them. So we have listed a very, simple, breakdown of our recommendations and also why we recommend this type of visa. For conditional one is if the applicant is a graduate from Hong Kong, university or a Hong Kong institution or a Great Bay Area campus of the Hong Kong universities. And we recommend or the company can consider, to apply for our IANG visa. Why? Why? Because first, for these applicants, they are eligible to apply for ING, which is the application is streamlined. It will be straightforward, and it will take only 2 to 4 weeks to complete the application. The processing time is not that long, and it will be quite important, for company to hire candidates, notice period, right? Normally it's 1 month or 2 months, 3 months is, maximum. And if the applicant can obtain their, working visa within 1 month, it would be ideal, right? So this is why we recommend IANG visa for the graduates from Hong Kong universities. And if the applicant is a graduate from the top universities, according to the top universities list released by Hong Kong government, and with some, working experiences, we would like to recommend TTPS visa, TTPS talent scheme. Why? Because similar with the ING application, the application will be very streamlined, and which only takes around 2 weeks for the applicant to obtain the approval for such visa. No, it's quite convenient and quite and also as we mentioned, for those advantages for the TTPS and the QMS holders, and the program is attractive to tenants. And we have reviewed some cases and some announcement from the government that I think over 95, 92% applicants which apply for TTPS visas eventually obtain their visas under this talent scheme. Why? Because the criteria are crystal clear. As long as you graduate from top universities and you have some work experiences, you will get this visa. And the Hong Kong government will, it took only, a week or two for the Hong Kong government to issue you this visa. It's among all those different types of visas, schemes, TTPS, the processing time for TTPS is almost the shortest. And in some cases, it only takes a week, 3 days even, for the government to issue a TTPS visa, because the criteria is very simple, very clear, right? So this is a very attractive, visa scheme for both employer, because the processing time is quite short, and also attractive to the applicant, to the individuals, because the advantages of the TTPS program. And if the applicant is a graduate with a more balanced background, and by balanced, we meaning that the applicants have a very good background regarding the age, the language skills, the education, the income level, the experience, working experience. Remember the 12 criteria, yes or no questions we discussed just now. So if they get a more balanced background, and plus if they are not a graduates from top universities, we will recommend a QMS program, right? That means compared with TTPS and QMS, we would prefer TTPS. Why? Because for our QMS application, it might take too long to get the visa. The processing time, currently, the processing time might take up to 6 months previously, prior to the reform of the QMS application criteria, it might take a year to get the visa. So sometimes many applicants eligible to TTPS, they can also try to apply for QMS, right? They also the graduates from top universities, they also have a very balanced background. They are young, they have good language skills, right? They graduate from top universities. They have very good education records. They have most of them have working experience, so they can also try to apply for QMS program. They can choose TTPS or QMS, right? And between these two teams, we would recommend TTPS because of the processing. For TTPS, it took a week or two. For QMS, it took 4 months or 6 months, right? It's a huge, uncertainty. If it took a half a year for a candidate to get his working visa, and it's an uncertainty both to the employer and the employee, right? So this is our recommendation. And if the applicant is with skills not readily available in Hong Kong, and if the applicant has no degrees, then we'll recommend the GEP or ASMTP visa. And under this, type of visa, the employment will be more, we call it more bounding. It means that if the individual want to, resign, he or she will lose his GEP or ASMTP visa immediately upon their resignation, because their visa is sponsored by their current employer, unless they can find a new employer to support their visa application in Hong Kong immediately after their resignation. They need to leave Hong Kong because they do not have a valid visa after their resignation. So the employees will consider, well, if I resign, I will lose my working visa in Hong Kong. So he or she will hesitate to resign under this GEP or ASMTP, visa. This is what we, refer to as a more bonding, yeah. And if the applicant is a R&D technology talent, we will recommend, Tech-Test. Why? Because this is, Tech-Test is tailor-made for R&D, technology talent in Hong Kong, right? But as we have mentioned, the employer need to apply for a quota for the Tech-Test visa. It's anyway a burden. And although it's not that difficult if the applicant is a R&D and the job vacancy is genuine, it's just a process, it's just a procedure. It's anyway a burden which will take time and resources, right? So this is a practical, recommendations for different visa schemes in Hong Kong, based on different conditions of the individual, and sometimes also of the considerations from perspective of the employer in Hong Kong. Any questions? Any questions? Because we have gone through all these different visa schemes. We compare these different schemes. we also, propose, some recommendations depending on the different, conditions. So, oh, we've got a question. Wait. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, thank you for the reminder. Under a GEP visa, the visa holder can remain in Hong Kong until the end of the visa period, which means they do not need to leave, immediately, but they are only allowed to, remain in Hong Kong till the end of the current visa period. But they can take up employment with a new employer until they get a new role and move their visa to the new employer. So this is, thank you very much for the, reminder. Okay, then we will go to a new, slide with the legal issues for ETPS and QMAS, visa holders. As we have mentioned, these two types of, visa, schemes are very hot now. So in 2024, according to the announcement released by the government, 2024, Hong Kong government has issued more than 41,000 ETPS visas, and also plus more than 11,000 UMAS visas to the applicants, and around 95% of the visa holders were from mainland China. So the overall working visas issued by Hong Kong government in 2024 is around 140,000 in total. So roughly the TTPS and the QMAS, visas occupies, around, more than around 30 plus percent of all the, working visas in Hong Kong. And more importantly, these two talent scheme visa holders are increasing. And so it attracts, more attention from the government, from the also from the employers in Hong Kong. And so in practice, legal issues are normally triggered under these two talent schemes. Especially many, multinational companies, they are moving employees from mainland China to Hong Kong under these two, talent schemes, under TTPS and the QMAS programs. So these are very, we have seen this as a trend of more and more multinationals, they are moving employees, from one, jurisdiction to another, and we have seen a trend from some of our clients. They are moving people from mainland China to Hong Kong, and we will, share you with two case study in this regard about, moving employees and within the same group from, mainland China to Hong Kong under this, TTPS QMAS, program. Case one. The background is that the APEC GC of Company A is a Chinese citizen based in Shanghai and will remain living in Shanghai. But she supports business across China, Hong Kong, and some APAC jurisdictions, and has team members in China, Malaysia, and Singapore. And for personal reasons, she applied for Hong Kong Top Talent scheme, TTPS scheme, and received approval, along with a visa and a Hong Kong resident ID. Then she applied with company A for a relocation from Shanghai to Hong Kong and wanted a sponsorship, of a local labor contract in Hong Kong to extend her TTPS visa upon its expiry, right? So, this is not uncommon in many, multinationals, which has, presence in mainland China as well as in Hong Kong. Many employees, especially, senior, employees, they are eligible to apply for TTPS or QMS talent scheme. And for personal, reasons such as, their children's education or their plans to, for relocation to a more international region, they raised the application with their employer that, well, I have, TTPS visa now, because when they apply for a TTPS visa, they do not need, Hong Kong employment, contract for a new application, right? As we have mentioned, only when they renew this, TTPS visa, they need a local contract, so they can apply themselves, and then they, raise the application, raise request to their employer, saying that, well, I would like to relocate to Hong Kong from mainland China, for many, personal reasons. So as the employer, how do we evaluate, their, request, and how can we minimize the employer's risk? I mean, this is a relocation from one jurisdiction to another, and if we want to move her employment from mainland China to Hong Kong, we need to anyway terminate her labor employment, her labor contract currently in Shanghai, and then start a new labor contract locally in Hong Kong, right? Termination of employment in mainland China is anyway, with risk, or unless there's a very, complete, procedure to, minimize this risk. And how can the employer to deal with her, severance, if any, to deal with her annual leave, untaken annual leave, if any, and how do we, balance the benefits, especially the leaves, the vacations, the leaves, the public holidays, in China and Hong Kong, because the public holidays in these two jurisdictions are different, right? So we need to consider all this, to assess these kind of requests of relocation. Then we assist the employer, we assist this client to implement the employment transfer. And first, we assist the company to terminate, this, GC's, employment agreement in Shanghai, first, we suggest the GC should enter into a agreement with her Shanghai employer to confirm her termination, the termination of her employment with the Shanghai employer, and to confirm the termination will not trigger any severance payment. There's a sign of this, consent. In addition, the agreement should also clarify that any of her untaken annual leave days will be carried forward to the Hong Kong employer. For example, she still has 7 days untaken annual leave. Then, after the transfer, there will be no compensation for her untaken annual leave with her Shanghai employer. But she will carry forward this 7 days untaken annual leave to the Hong Kong employer, right? And and of course, we also advise, the companies to, start a new Hong Kong labor contract between this individual and her Hong Kong employer. And what the one issue is very actually it's kind of risky is about the tax obligations for TTPS and QMAS, employees. To minimize company A's potential tax liabilities, we suggest the agreement and should also specify that this individual should ensure the compliance of her tax obligations in both Hong Kong and mainland China. Especially, she has the obligation to report her Hong Kong income to PRC tax authorities because she remains a mainland taxpayer after her relocation to Hong Kong, because she is now still would be regarded as a mainland taxpayer only when she obtained her Hong Kong PR and then she deregistered her hukou in Shanghai. Then we can conclude that she is not a mainland taxpayer, after the deregistration of a Hong Kong hukou. Of course, that also depends on other elements, which including that all her payroll is, paid by her Hong Kong, employer, right? So we can foresee that within the following 7 years, she still remains as a mainland taxpayer. She has the obligation to report all her Hong Kong income to mainland China tax authority. And in conclusion, that if she report her Hong Kong, income to tax, PRC tax authorities, her tax, burden will remain the same, before the relocation, which means that, in total, her tax will be almost the same if she remains through employment in Shanghai. So this is about the, tax, which is a very, with potential legal risk. And as we mentioned, we also assist drafting the Hong Kong employment, agreement. In principle, Hong Kong, employment agreement will be based on Company A's, Hong Kong, template, and with the start date of employment as the day immediately following the termination date of her employment with Shanghai employer, right? And of course, we suggest that such Hong Kong employment agreement should also specify her job duties in both Hong Kong and mainland China. Remember, she still has job duties in mainland China. And we have mentioned about, the leaves. And as her employment will be transferred to Hong Kong, the entitlement to public holidays and the leaves, including annual leaves, should normally, follow Company A's policies and the practice in Hong Kong. However, as she will split her time in Hong Kong and mainland China, after consulting with the individual, right, Company A can reach an agreement with her on details of the holidays and the leave entitlement. For example, in the mainland China public holidays, which are not holidays in Hong Kong, she is supposed to take her annual leaves if she want to, enjoy her mainland China public holidays. For example, uh, let's imagine a public holiday which is not of course the traditional Spring Festival holidays in mainland China are much more longer than that in Hong Kong. Then she can apply for example 3 days annual leave with her Hong Kong employer and to spend her on leaves in mainland China to celebrate the Spring Festival. So this is a case study for us to balance the risks under the arrangement of a relocation from mainland China to Hong Kong under TTPS. Then we can have another case. It's a pharmaceutical company in Hangzhou, Company B, and intended to sponsor several senior employees who are TTPS holders and with dual employment in Hangzhou and Hong Kong. With dual employment, that means these senior employees, they want to remain the current employment contract with the Hangzhou employer, and they want to have a new labor contract with the Hong Kong employer. Why? Why? This is of course subject to the negotiation between the individuals and the company, but we guess maybe the these senior employees, they want to remain their social insurance contributions in mainland China, because in order to be eligible for social insurance contributions, you need to have a local labor contract in mainland China, right? So they just want to simply remain eligible for the social insurance mainland China social insurance schemes. And then the arrangement for the time is almost split 50-50 in Hangzhou and Hong Kong. So the proposal is they want to split the labor contract from one labor contract into two contracts, and then also split the payroll around 50-50 in Hangzhou and in Hong Kong. Question one, and most important question, is the dual employment a legal issue? We can share our insights and we can have a discuss in the dialogue in the chat dialogue. Is it a problem for such dual employment? Is there any, anyone want to share the thought in this respect? Is it problematic for employee to have two contracts, one in Hangzhou, another in Hong Kong? Okay, let's see. Anyone want to share their thoughts in this respect? Okay, I would like to share my personal, view on this. It's that it's not against, you know, the against the mainland China laws or Hong Kong laws to have a labor contract in Hangzhou and another in Hong Kong, but with some, preconditions, including both parties should, clarify the, of course, if it's within the same group, there might be no, conflict of interest issues, but, there are still a lot of other, matters, issues we would like to deal with. The first is about the dual leave entitlements in Hong Kong and in mainland China, because the employees they have two labor contracts now. Under each, they are entitled to the leave entitlements, right? They can claim for leave entitlements in Hong Kong as well as in Hangzhou. They have the labor contracts as a basis to claim for that. So, in principle, the employees will be entitled to statutory. Okay, we have a question about consent in jurisdictions or potential conflict of interests. And so, yeah, there might be, if an individual has two labor contracts, one in Hong Kong, one in mainland China, there might be a potential conflict of interest issue. But as long as if these two labor contracts are transparent to their employers, and the employees are actually under one group, and the arrangement are fully transparent to the group, and there will be okay because their job duties, their time splits, their arrangement, their leave arrangements are all transparent to the to their reporting line, right? It's just that they have two different legal entities under the same group, and that will be okay from perspective of conflict of interest, right? And then we get back to the matter of statutory holiday. So in principle, the employees will be entitled to statutory holidays under Hong Kong law, and you know as well as under PRC law. So these statutory holidays do not fully overlap, right? So which will result in the employees being able to enjoy more statutory holidays than other employees solely engaged by company B, a PRC entity or Hong Kong entity. To be fair, we suggest that those senior employees PRC contract should include a clause that the employees agree to take annual leave on a Hong Kong statutory holiday when such day is not a statutory holiday in PRC to ensure that total leaves equal with other employees in the PRC, because prior to this split, for example, they are entitled to 11 public holidays on a yearly basis, right? We do not want, this split increase their public holiday entitlement. So for those additional, days, we suggest they apply for annual leaves. This is statutory holiday issue. And another issue might be the statutory annual leave issue. So the employees, those senior employees, will be entitled to statutory annual leave, under PRC laws, of course. And if they are also, continuous contract employees, which means their employment for at least, 4 consecutive weeks, and they regularly work more than, 18 hours per week, they will be, regarded as continuous contract employees in Hong Kong. Then they will also, be entitled to statutory annual leaves under Hong Kong laws. So which may mean that they can enjoy 2 separate sets of statutory annual leave entitlement. Then we suggest that the company, both the Hong Kong entity and the Hangzhou entity, should have agreements to clarify the statutory annual leave entitlements. Try to ensure the split do not, significantly impact their, annual leave entitlement. And then about the pensions, social securities. In the previous case, it's crystal clear that the GC will lose her, social security, contributions in mainland China, and then she will start, MPF contributions in Hong Kong. But for these employees, they have 2 labor contracts. They will remain the social security contributions, social insurance securities in Hangzhou, and then they should enroll the MPF scheme and make monthly mandatory, contributions, in Hong Kong. So this is a must because it's a legal requirement. They have 2 labor contracts. This is some costs the company might bear in mind. And about their, working hours, both parties, are free to, agree on the working hours for the, Hong Kong employment. So if their, working hours meet the requirements for, continuous contract, employee, then they will be entitled to the additional rights and protections under Hong Kong laws, including, holiday pays, rest days, paid annual leave, sickness allowance, severance, or long service payment, if any, right? So, in the PRC, the working hours are legally regulated, and the parties should ensure the compliance with, PRC laws. And another interesting issue is about the, disciplinary procedures and terminations. First, the laws and the internal policies applicable to, the respective employments should be followed. For the disciplinary, procedures, if there is a regional, disciplinary, policy in place, both the, employing entity in Hong Kong, in Hangzhou, can follow the policy, However, if the policy are, jurisdiction specific, then they should follow the policy applicable to their respective jurisdictions. And for termination, the termination process of the employment will also need to comply with the respective applicable laws and the regulations in Hong Kong and in Hangzhou, and which means that these employees will be entitled to 2 sets of termination payments upon the termination of employment with both employers. But remember, their payroll is also split 50-50, right? So in total, even if they got, two sets of termination payments, the eventually, their severances might be the same because the monthly base are split, right? But because there are different calculations of severance in Hong Kong, which is in general less favorable to the employees. So this split, in general, it will not be um, um, less favorable for the employer from the perspective of severance. Right? Then we can go to uh, personal data, post-employment restrictive covenants. As a general advice, company B can consider aligning, the post-termination, covenant, period or the PRC template with, the Hong Kong template. One potential issue will have difficult, restrict, restrictive periods across the templates is that the company may need to justify the differences in the duration. For example, if the Hong Kong restraint, period is longer than the PRC restrictive period, then if this is challenged by the employee, the company may need to give, specific reasons, to the Hong Kong court, to show it's necessary and reasonable to have a longer restraint period in Hong Kong in order for the restraint period to be enforceable. So this is a issue need to be, considered and evaluated on a case-by-case basis. And the last, issue is about the personal data. Now, please note that, company B will need to comply with the personal data privacy obligations in Hong Kong as well as in PRC, respectively. So, in the case of a cross-border, dual employment arrangement, it may be common for the employer, to transfer employees' entity to each other, right? Between the two, employing entities. So, while in general, employees' consent, is sufficient for company B, for company B's, both employing entity to transfer, for company B Hong Kong to transfer employees' data overseas, including to the employing entity in Hangzhou. But note that more strict requirements applying in the PRC, which might including authorities' approval and separate consent from employee if the Hangzhou entity intends to transfer the employee's entity out of mainland China to Hong Kong. So this is a privacy issue we need to take into account, when we intend to transfer that personal information, for the impacting employees. We now have a Q&A session. Is there any questions you might have regarding the visa schemes, regarding the case studies, anything? Or if you have any questions after this training session, you can just simply shoot me emails. Okay, we are almost run out of time. Okay. Thank you for all your time today for this, training session. I think if you have any, any question or any suggestions, just, shoot me emails. Emails is listed, here. Thank you. Thank you for the supporting stuff. Thank you.